Wow, we have reached the last but not least important subject, smart services, branch and ATM experience. Let's all welcome again Rita Makhul, Managing Editor at ArabNet, who will lead this panel.
Hello again. I know it's the end of the day. One last session. Obviously, we're done for the day. I'd like to welcome our two speakers, our two panelists, Mr. Saeed Al-Nahdi, who is head of ATM at the Arab National Bank, and Hisham Yamout, who's the general manager at NCR, to have this lovely discussion today. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. Let's first get started with a brief introduction of what each of you do in your jobs and life, if you guys want.
Saeed Al-Nahdi, head of ATM network at Arab National Bank, Saudi Arabia. In banking, I started my career almost 2005. I started with the virtual banking, managing internet and mobile banking for Rajhi Bank. And then I moved to Arab National Bank during 2012, doing the same thing, internet and mobile banking. Recently, I have moved to the physical world, managing ATMs, and very much interested into getting into the smart branches concept.
Hi, I'm Hisham Yamout. I've been with NCR for 10 years. I've been managing payment solution for Middle East Africa. Then I was handling NCR in Qatar for 6 years. And recently I moved to handle NCR business in Lebanon. I'm very excited about today's meeting you because NCR, we are the company who usually works with banks to help you in this migration of what you have sold today in the fintech. We are the number one world consumer transaction technology. The reason is we work with the consumer. This is a very important point that was mentioned a lot. So you have heard maybe self-check-in at the airport, self-check-out in retail stores, ATM, self-service. So we have worked with your consumer wherever he has interacted. And this is something we're going to discuss a little bit more in today.
Of course we will.
Yeah.
Hello, before we get started, can everybody hear us clearly? No? Okay. We'll try to get closer to the microphones if that helps. Okay. So we're going to make more of an effort here.
Sure.
And also before we get started, how many of you work in a bank? Almost everybody. Yeah. Are the rest of you in fintech? No? Just one fintech here? Okay. Just to give us an idea of who our audience is today. So let's start off with the basic question. How has technology affected the banking sector, let's say, but more specifically, the branch?
So definitely the banks are having a branch transformation strategy, right? Because technology is evolving a lot. Technology was one way to help those banks transform from the usual branch to the branch which we are calling smarter branches. Definitely it doesn't come in a day and night. There is a lot of background process legislations behind it. I will give some examples. So for example, banks have a problem of having people queuing for a long time in the branches. So this is a very negative consumer experience. So one item was how to migrate the customers to self-service area. We have conducted more than 50 consultancy with banks, large banks, and they all share the same fear, is how to make the branches more profitable, how to migrate more people, because technology is important, but you cannot, it's a nice concept, I'm going to deploy it. You have to make sure that it works for you.
Agreed, and I think I did the mistake here, and maybe we should take a step back and first maybe ask, why should banks go to the transformation? Why should you be introducing technology? What's the purpose of it? Saeed, would you like to answer that first?
When we talk about technology, it didn't only impact the behavior of the customer into the banking sector. technology impacted the lifestyle of every individual in our daily lives. Unless banking goes within this loop and we induct the banking within the daily lifestyle of our consumers, currently some of the services contradicts with our daily lives. For example, the banking service hours, the branches works in Saudi up till 4. I heard here it is up till 2 o'clock. So if you want to perform a transaction, you need to cut off your day from your office and you need to go physically to the branch to perform a transaction. So the behavior the technology has changed the behavior that we live our lives, and thus we need the banking, our banking sector to go with the consumer lifestyle, and it shouldn't contradict the consumer's lifestyle. There was a very popular saying that consumers needs banking is needed, but banks are not needed actually, and this is where it goes to the highest extreme of eliminating the physical aspect of a bank and doing most of the transactions of the branch, yes, yeah, and the bank will remain over there, and doing all the transactions remotely. Banks in this region are not yet ready for this, but down the road, 10 years in the future, I believe customers, they are going to drive this change.
So you're saying the banks are still not ready, but are the consumers ready?
Yes, this is what I believe, yes. And banks, they are not ready. It is not because banks are not, technology is a bit expensive. At the end, we at the banks, we need to present good numbers for the investors at the end of the year. It is not something fancy that we need to present. Customers are ready, and the banks are held back because of the investment, and sometimes because of the regulations at X country. It doesn't really provide the flexibility for banks to innovate and to move forward on this.
So the consumers are chasing after this digital bank. They're more tech savvy, they want something that's convenient, they want something that's seamless. I can speak as one myself. We don't want this hassle of going to the bank and doing a lot of things. And from what it is that we're seeing from consumer interaction, we've seen them migrate, I think, and this is where I want your input as well. They seem to be migrating more on the transactional services.
True, exactly. If you look at the Saudi market, you will find that 95% of the teller transactions has already migrated to channels, whether it is an ATM, physical channels, or to internet and mobile banking, while the transactions that are being done by the customer service are still in a very low migration percentage. In Saudi market, you'll find like 20 to 30% has migrated, but still the percentage is low, and there is a huge opportunity into migrating the customer service transactions into either an ATM or to have it remotely through internet and mobile banking. There are some transactions it needs physical interaction, and where a customer needs to print a debit card, or he wants a statement, a stamped statement. This kind of transmission, it will go to the interactive teller machines or the kiosks, and in future this can maybe migrated to internet and mobile, and those physical instruments can be mailed to the customer through a courier. And I believe this will be the best option for banks, is to eliminate the physical presence of customers, unless the customers or the customer, he wants to make a decision, a buying decision for a personal loan or a home loan, where the customer will feel more comfortable in discussing this deal with someone at the branch.
So you believe that the transactional, like what we're talking about, like all transactional activities will take place online, mobile banking, ITMs, ATMs, and human interaction should be removed from that and only be remained as advisory services.
Exactly, yes.
And this means we say goodbye to the teller?
I see branches down the road. It will not have a vault.
Hisham has something to say about that.
It will not have a teller. And I believe introducing technology element to the existing branches will incur more cost into the bank. But remodeling the branch into smart branches where the size is smaller, the human factor is less than the traditional branch. With having a technology, it will be very cost effective for the bank, and it will increase the customer satisfaction level as well.
I want to say that it's consumers are ready from a technological point, not all of them, definitely, because also the bank has to reach all the consumers in the market. So if they know a little bit online, it doesn't mean they are ready to go for the branch transformation. So usually, banks do a lot of background work to make those transformation happen. So, for example, introduction of meet and greeters in the branch. So you have to be with the customer. It's to be honest, it's a long roadmap to making this change happen, because it's all about consumer experience. As the consumer also, he's ready, but he's also becoming more knowledgeable. So today, we're seeing bank very much interested on omni-channel perspective. So what is omni-channel? I want to have the consumer experience at the ATM, at the internet banking, mobile banking, the same experience. I don't want to select every time English and Arabic whenever I go to the ATM. I want the ATM to know me. So there is a lot of also back-end work that the banks are also working on to make this consumer experience fully supported.
What about the human element? Do you agree with, say, the fact that, like, say, we're probably going to say goodbye to the tellers, it's just going to be more advisory, maybe the future of the branch is not going to have any human element as well?
We did a very successful case study with a loan bank who is really innovative in the market. We did a case study with a bank who's very innovative. I'm just raising my voice a little bit. And to be honest, for example, this bank introduced interactive teller machines. So interactive teller machines, the bank is not only able to do the ATM transaction, but they are able to do more, such as over the limit transaction than the ATM, such as cashing a check. So there, you might have customers who come who have your check, but they don't have your account. They don't have a card. So they can go to the ATM to cash a check in place of waiting in the queue. So tellers have been migrated in this case study to be remote tellers. So they move to a different position. They will be talking to people in a different experience, and they have been done in a transformation perspective. Definitely, I think the banks are trying to operationalize how things are happening.
So how do you both envision the future of the branch will be? Will the branch still be there, or will it die? And if it will remain, what would it look like?
The branch will remain there, at least in the near future, talking about the 10 years, but whether banks will have the same number of branches, I believe no. Most of the banks will shrink their number of branches. I believe we are going to see remodeling for some of the existing branches or the new branches, where the size of the branch will be smaller in order to optimize the operational cost of the branch. This is how I see it. I see on a long term that branches will be there for advisory, as we mentioned, and internet and mobile banking, because this is it will provide the customer the maximum convenience that he is looking for. No one wants to pay a trip to a branch during busy hours or rush hours. The adoption will take time, and I believe currently, like we face in Arab National Bank, some of our customers, they are not ready to use internet and mobile. We have some pensioners who are above 50s or 60s. They are not ready, but moving them gradually to a self-service concept within the branch, and then the meter greeter, while educating them for this self-service concept, he started promoting the internet and mobile banking. this will help into migrating those customers to the final destination that we see it as a bank is the optimal for us.
Go ahead.
So I agree with Saeed that even in the US we have seen 30% down in the number of branches. However, ATM and branches are still having the highest number of transactions. We usually, the banks are today, and looking at the fintech, the banks are trying also to innovate. The bank have very strong arm inside the country. So they're trying to reduce bigger branches, but they're trying to enable smaller branches and do more partnerships. So for example, to gain more consumer experience. So I can pass to the branch to print a cinema ticket and then go to the cinema. So they want to go a little bit an extra mile in the services they are providing.
Right. How should banks consider what technologies that they should be adopting? And not just how, but how to use, I mean, not just which technologies, but how to use them. Like, for example, there's so many technologies out there today. Like, right now we're just touching, like, the tip of the iceberg. We're just talking ATMs and ITMs and whatnot. But we've got beacons and augmented reality, virtual reality, droids, and there's so much out there. Blockchain, for example. And there's so many methods of how to use the different types of technologies. Like, we've seen beacons used in several methods, like where some people are using them just for queues, where people don't have to wait in a bank anymore. They'd be somewhere in the area. They'll get a number. By the time they're in there, like, they'll get this message. You'll be in your lines, like, you're up in 5 minutes. They're in there in 5 minutes. They don't have to wait in the bank. Others are using beacons as a loyalty program, as a loyalty scheme. How would you consult a bank on what technologies they should be adopting and how they should be using them?
It all starts from the consumers. Okay, so these are, you mentioned many technologies. Some of them are not very successful in the banking area or in the airport or different places. But there are technologies, so the banks start from the consumer experience and what do they want to achieve with this consumer. For example, we have seen banks, and this is also increasing, enabling NFC. Why I need to come and wait on the ATM? I can pre-stage a transaction. I want $100. I come, I just scan a code on the ATM, and it gives me the money, and I leave. So banks are selecting technologies based on what is interested for their consumers, how to make the transaction happier, how to make a memory last, because the memory can last in positive or negative. So it can last in a nice, exceptional experience, because a good experience, they will forget it. But an exceptional experience, they will remember it. A bad experience, they will remember it. So that's why also banks takes time. They pilot, they do a proper rollout, they try a lot of technologies before they roll it out. Because if they roll out something wrong and it came with a bad consumer experience, it's a negative thought.
From my perspective, technology is only an enabler. Every bank knows his pain points, and every bank would choose a different technology to use to solve these pain points. It goes even to the branch level. Some of the branches, you might need an X machine that does an X transaction for customers, while the other branch, you don't need that machine. I'll give you an example of one of the branches that we have. We have noticed that the number of checkbook printed on that branch is very high, exceptional actually, while the rest of our branches that they have a very minimal number of checkbook printing requests. So we have decided on that branch we are going to have a self-service which provide a checkbook printing facility, while on the others it will be an extra investment which is not needed. So I believe it is based on the bank, and even goes to the branch level, which technology to offer to the customer.
So you have to think both of the profitability of introducing this technology,
Absolutely.
and whatever advantages or like how consumers can leverage on the technology as well. You've got to think of both aspects.
Exactly, absolutely. Because as I mentioned when I started, technology is not cheap. And at the end, if you are not optimizing the operational cost of the branch, then you incur more cost without a benefit to the organization. From an investment perspective, you need to be very careful, and the customer experience factor that Hisham just mentioned is an important factor, but it shouldn't really overcome the OPEX of the organization.
Just to add one more point. Something very important as well is the central bank regulations. Because sometimes central bank might put regulations which limit what the bank can do. And it's good to see that in Lebanon, for example, central banks are closed and they come and see the technology. Because there is limited risk sometimes, and sometimes it should be enabled to allow a transformation from a country perspective. So that's very important from a technology point of view.
Yeah, I would like to mention here, this is a very important point, and we in digital banking, we have suffered a lot, and some of the regulators, they started introducing sandboxing concept in order to allow banks to innovate and to try new technologies or new services within this sandboxing. I believe very soon we are going to have one in Saudi.
Looking around the region, we've seen a lot of banks introduce technologies that is probably just to create a name. It's not for the use of it. It's something that looks sexy. It's to create a hype. It's to create something. Is that challenging for the remaining banks? Do they feel like they need to imitate them, or should they just ignore it? Like we were discussing earlier, sometimes it's biometrics, sometimes it's something else, and it's something you can do without. Your consumers really don't need. It doesn't add that extra incentive, but it makes you look better and you're a lot more modern. It's something else probably we should I'd like to touch on is the user experience. Like you could have a very nice, good-looking, smart branch. You go in, there's the beautiful screens, but what about the usability of it as well and the user interface?
See, as you mentioned, that some of the banks, they invest on these technologies as part of their branding and image, and but what is more important is the customer experience within the branch. Some of the banks, they have gone to the extreme where they have invested a lot into the machines and screens and tablets, but when you go as a customer to the branch and you walk in to perform a transaction, you will feel the same pain that you were facing in a traditional branch. So there should be a balance always between the customer journey or the customer experience from the moment he enters the smart branch until he walks out of it. Each and every details, the placement of the machines. And I had recently a very bad experience in one of the banks in Saudi where they have developed a new smart branch, and part of their process that the customer, he updates or he fills in his information within a tablet. It was a mini iPad. Unfortunately, the form they have designed to fill in the information, it wasn't touch-friendly at all. So I spent almost 30 minutes trying to fill a form.
You've got a lot of patience.
Oh my God. It was a very horrible experience. Trying even to scroll the drop-down menus, it was a horrible experience.
If you're a regular consumer, would you have stayed in for 30 minutes, or were you just curious to see where this was going to lead?
I wanted to see it, actually. I wanted to experience the whole thing. But for a regular customer, it was...
I would have walked out.
It took me the whole process almost 45 minutes going back and forth between the customer service agent and the tablet. They have done a very nice design. They have filled the branch with screens and tablets, but when you look at the experience that I had, it was zero.
And that defeats the purpose of having a smart branch.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So just on the other point, banks are competing. So all the banks, they like to compete, and they like always to bring innovation. We have worked with a bank, for example, to do finger vein authentication. But it's something that has good. It's good from an investment perspective, but it has also a lot of benefits. And it was first in the region because they do it through a finger vein. It's an advanced technology. So banks try a lot to innovate, but in a way that it is also generating good revenue and good profit, good consumer experience.
How would you advise the banks? I mean, a lot of banks are mapping the customer journey through data. And how would you advise them to look at that data and treat that data? And how would they map the consumer journey and find the right technology or otherwise services that they need to include in their branches?
Very, very important question. Today, most of the banks, and we have also many from IT, they look at the consumer data from a system perspective, from MIS, from record. So how many transactions happened in this branch and the other branch? But looking at it from a different angle. So, and this is something, an exercise we do with the banks. So we bring consultants, they come sit in the branches. They see the person who came, spent 30 minutes and left. This is something a transaction will not show you. It will show you the customer who waited to do something simple, he could have done it differently. We have seen, for example, a report where the same person did a deposit and a dispense and an inquiry. To the system, it's 3 different transactions. So if you want to build decision based on the system, it might not be really as you want. The consulting or the view of the branch is really what will make you successful to what you want to deploy in the branch. It will really help you. So the bank's experience with this consulting is something very important to make them move forward.
I totally agree with Hisham. I've spent a day in a branch, and what I have seen there is completely different than what the reports are telling, because you will find a customer facing the teller. He is there, let's say, to deposit cash, and at the same time, he is asking about his balance, and he has some inquiry, another inquiry. So it is a 3 transaction, while the report that you will get at the end, it is showing 1 transaction. The waiting time is another aspect. You will find that from a customer perspective, I will start counting the transaction time from the moment I step into the branch. While the report is not going to show you how much time the customer has really spent at the branch. So seeing the experience, the real experience which is happening in the branch, is a very important factor into the remodeling study, other than the reports, because the reports, it might not give you the real indicator and the pain points of that specific branch.
I'm told we only have a few minutes left, so are there any questions from the audience? Yes, there is.
So you were talking about smart branches. What about smart ATMs? Okay. I don't know if you know, there's a bank called Idea Bank. They developed just a concept of an ATM, mobile ATM. They put it in a store, and you just order the ATM to come to your door, because it's for the merchant to go deposit money at the end of the day. The branches, they're all closed after 10 p.m. So this was one of the ideas. So, okay, it's very nice to talk about smart branches, but as you said, the number of branches is going to be decreasing a lot, and we're expecting the number of ATMs or other intelligent machines to rise. So what about the future of ATMs?
So I fully agree with you. ATMs also are evolving. Maybe the example you gave is an extreme example.
But it's an amazing example. We can order our ATM to come right to our door.
Okay, so just giving some examples. So definitely the ATMs as well are being transformed. So from a design perspective, from functionality perspective. So just looking at your phone. Now the ATM used to be 8 options, selection, then to touch screen, and now it's multi-touch screen. So also the ATM has to reflect the feeling you get from your internet banking and your mobile banking. Security is increasing as well, capacity as well, because the previous software of the ATM was a software controlled by a controller. So it's like a dummy software where you just tell it what to do. The new software of the ATM is now built on HTML5. You can develop transactions, you can do things like I want to print a ticket, print a statement,
You were
more
telling us
functions.
earlier about integrating the ATM with the mobile experience and having that seamless experience go through as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also another advancement in ATM.
Yeah.
And that's something you have introduced, haven't you?
Yes. So this is as an example, because once you have a very solid solution software, but not all the banks yet have it, then you will be able to develop things quickly. So like a 3-stage transaction, or once I log into the ATM, immediately alert will go to the branch manager. This is a VIP customer, enabling. So definitely also the ATM models. We have introduced something like ATM in the mobile truck, so it's a different concept, a little bit new. So we have seen like a mobile branch. So for example, why go to the corporate customer, not only the retail, go to the corporate customer, take money at their location through a mobile van with an ATM for the weather. This is going all together. We believe in NCR as a company. We believe that the future is related to a platform. This is how we see it. So just to give you things to think about it. So you know Uber. So they developed a platform, and then everyone is using it. Facebook developed a platform, everyone is using it. This is the future, 10 years from now. So our banks are looking at building a platform and enabling users to use it. This is how different it will be.
Progressively. Any more questions from the audience? No. Unfortunately, we only had half an hour to discuss this topic. It's a very vast topic that we can take forever discussing all the different types of technologies, the different types of branches and all that. But I'd like to thank Saeed and Hisham for being here with us. They're available. They'll be around if you guys want to ask them any questions later if anything pops up. Thank you all for joining us and hope you all enjoyed today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all attendees. Thank you all attendees, speakers, and panelists for clearly making us see how not only technology is changing how we work, but also how we live. Hope you all had a good day. Please join us at the main event, Emirates Hall. And don't forget to download the app, ArabNet Beirut, for a new day tomorrow is going to be held only at the main forum only. We start at 9:30. Take care and see you.